at 52309.
I'm Warren Miller. You better hang on tight, because here we go.
Warren Miller is walking in. We're going to sit down and talk to the man himself in just a sec. He's being honored by SIF. I'm Bob Rivers along with Spike O'Neill and Downtown Joe. Jody in the newsroom. What you should put in a safety deposit box to answer our question from before. This is from the web. Now, not everybody agrees with all of this, but Joe, are you ready?
You bet.
Marriage certificate.
I think it's around somewhere. I'll have to
one
dig.
of those? Ooh, copy of will. Not actual will, but copy of will.
Where do you keep your actual will? With your attorney?
I don't know. Birth certificate. Yeah, usually. Birth certificate.
I've got that.
Now, these are copies. Copy of passport, copy of, never mind, college degree, copy of professional license.
Don't really have. I've got a real estate license.
Did you ever go get your exotic dancer's license?
No, I never did. It was,
Still working rogue, huh,
You
buddy?
don't actually need a license for that.
Oh, in this city
In this city, you actually do. He researched it.
Yeah.
And when he found out about it, he said, I'm going to get one just for fun.
You guys kidding me?
No.
You've been breaking the law, haven't you? Another one. Look at you.
Okay. A copy of a copy of separation divorce. You don't need that. Papers. Social Security card should go in your safety deposit box. Health information, vaccinations, hospitalizations, copies, and copies of military records. You should put deeds, titles, title insurance, deeds, titles, and insurance for autos, for your home and auto, videotape, and DVD inventory of your house. This is a good list, actually. Copy of receipts for big-ticket items, copy of homeowners insurance, copy of receipts for home improvements. Only an accountant would do all of this, right? And it does say, and mostly copies, by the way. They don't say to put the originals in there for some reason. And one of the reasons was why, Eric, about life insurance. Someone was texting us about that. Oh, he's on the phone.
The problem is getting into the thing. I mean, there's only two keys. There's two keys, and you can't copy them. And if you lose them, they got to drill the safe, and that's like a $400 deal.
Expensive.
They asked me, too, when I signed up for it. They said, you want your wife on there? And for a minute, I was...
Smartest man in the room right here.
I thought a minute, but then I thought, no good could come of having a safety deposit box that she's not a part of. So
she will want to see what's in there.
So she's on there.
They also recommend negatives of family photos and a sheet of bounce fabric softener.
Of course, a sheet of bounce fabric softener.
No jewelry? I mean...
that's not on the
You
recommended.
don't put jewelry in the bank in case you want to wear it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't want to brag, but I have one. One set in Argentina, because when I left, my mom left me some jewelry, and I didn't want to bring it with me, so I left it there. And that's the only thing that I kept there, just some jewelry.
8:37.
Ski trip, and I'm going to be your guide. I'm Warren Miller. You better hang on tight, because here we go.
Nobody has done more to popularize the sport of skiing than the man in this chair. Warren Miller has done many, many, many movies featuring skiing, surfing, outdoor activities. His movies are timeless works of art. He's also a big movie and filmmaking fan himself. And on November 20th, you have an opportunity to do something with this living legend that is very unique. That night at Benaroya Hall, Mr. Miller will be presented the Golden Space Needle Award from SIF. And then after a little Q&A and a few highlights from his 6 decades of filmmaking, everyone kicks back and enjoys a screening of a movie that Warren says, and me too, by the way, is one of his all-time favorite movies. And the movie is?
The Gods Must Be Crazy.
The Gods Must Be Crazy. Warren Miller, welcome to the Bob Rivers Show. How are you?
It's nice to be here.
All right. And why The Gods Must Be Crazy?
I think that everybody that I mentioned the project to, if that's a proper term, asked the same question. And I think that whoever produced The Gods Must Be Crazy, it was as though he made it with a 16-millimeter Bolex, 3 lenses, and a carton of film. There's no special effects. There's no nothing. There's a very simple story that changes the destiny of an entire village over a Coca-Cola bottle. It sounds weird, but there's no cinematic trickery in it. There's no car chases. There's no airplane crashes. There's no rape, pillage. There's no dirty words. Dirty words are how do you define one anymore?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you actually you define it by going beep, beep, beep.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Packing your stuff and
Exactly.
going home.
Yeah.
But it's such a pleasure to see, if you will, the occasional film where a person takes the art of making a movie, reduces it to its basics, and the same with the storyline. You know, in the early days of making movies, the story always, the lady got tied on the railroad tracks, the guy rescued her at the last second, and then the villain got hung or shot or something. But they followed a very simple theme. And today, you need a playbook as big as an NFL football team to follow the plots in some of these movies.
You know what? I agree with you. Some of them are actually, it's as if they, you know what it is, though? It's as if they want people to blog about it, talk about it, and try and figure it out, and then watch it 5 times.
Well, my wife is really hooked. She has an iPad, and she's hooked into watching all of the detective stories. And she's found 2 different television series that's produced in Australia. One of them is about a couple of detectives, and it follows CSI Miami scene by scene, except everybody's got an Australian accent. And there's no way you can follow the storyline. And then there's another Australian one where there's these 6 women living on a horse ranch in northern Australia. I can't understand a word of what they're saying anyway.
Right.
And then you get these 6 women and 6 different boyfriends, and the interaction of them. You need a playbook.
So, Warren, how did you get the iPad on Orcas Island? Did it fall out of the sky and just drop into your backyard?
Well,
Jobs must be crazy.
yeah.
that's right. My wife bought it for me because I'm starting to have vision problems at my senior citizen category, macular degeneration, and she thought I could enlarge the type.
Yeah.
And it was in the house for about an hour, and I've never seen it since.
You've never said because she loves it. All right.
I can't get it out of her
right.
hands, which is fine.
Warren Miller, you are the ski filmmaker of all time. You're the legendary filmmaker for these kinds of films, and you have done over 750 of them.
Well, that's an exact. Every time somebody brings that up, I've got a list of about 100 half-hour television shows I produced, in addition to hundreds of ski films, and I long ago lost track of what they are.
So is the number too low, or is it?
No, it's too. I think it's under 300, maybe.
Oh, you don't think it's that many?
Well, I don't know, because I never. I did everything connected with producing a movie for the first 14 years, and then I got so busy that I had to hire a cameraman. And then I sent him out where I couldn't go at the right time of the year to get the right kind of snow. And then I had to hire a part-time editor. Well, then my desk was getting so buried, I hired a part-time salesman. He became full-time, and pretty soon I've got 10 or 11 people working for me. But I got to stay home more. I didn't have to be on the road as much, because I was on the road doing 100 one-night stands every year, showing the film to get enough money to make the next one.
Right, you were the CEO. You were the famous Amos of your cookies.
Yeah, and I cleaned the toilets too.
You did everything. There was nothing you wouldn't do.
You know what's funny? Who else started like that? Santa Claus. Do everything himself.
Started with just his neighborhood.
Had to hire distribution people.
Yeah, but he didn't go bald like I did in 1953.
How much do you snowboard these days? A lot.
I tried it about I had it in my films 5 or 6 years before they allowed them on a ski lift, and on a snowboard you either catch the leading edge or the trailing edge, and you either fall over backwards and bash your brains on the hard snow, or you fall over and it's as though you hit a tripwire. And I thought, this was before they even put edges on snowboards. And I thought, it's taken me X years to be very comfortable on a pair of skis with my camera, and I don't need to learn another sport that replicates what I'm already doing. Give me something different.
So you made snowboarding films, but you yourself never took up snowboarding?
I got a ration from all the ski resorts because I kept champing. If they had invented snowboards before skis, you wouldn't let me on the lift with a funny thing on each foot. So what's wrong with these guys? They're going down the hill. They're having more fun than the guy and his wife and 4 kids with a private instructor for each one of them. And it gave the younger generation an opportunity to say, Dad, give me my lift ticket. I'll see you at 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And so there was separation of church and state, if you will. And the kids loved it. Now the kids are growing up. They're not senior citizens. They're not baby boomers. They're the generation behind baby boomers. That's the bulk of the market. And there's a lot of what's happening with some of the really hot snowboarders. They're finding that they can do a lot more tricks on a pair of skis than they can on a snowboard. So there's a cross-pollination has gone on. And
It sounds like you're saying it's a different sport. It's way, way different, and you could be really good at one and not at the other. And are you saying snowboarding is harder, and less safe?
No, it's much easier.
Okay.
Quicker learning curve if you can stand falling on your face 93
More
times.
dangerous.
I was able to do that.
Yeah.
Is it more like surfing than skiing, you think, snowboarding, if you had to equate the two?
Yeah,
It always seemed the way to me.
The body movements on a snowboard would be as though you're surfing with bindings. I started surfing in 1937 when I built my first paddleboard in junior high school woodshop. And the whole time I surfed right up till about 1962 when I bought a catamaran and gave Hobie Alder a ride for it, and then he invented the Hobie Cat.
How about that?
And he's my next door neighbor, incidentally, up on the island we live on. And he has a 250,000 sailboats out there with his name on the sail. And the yacht club group still doesn't appreciate him because they're having too much fun, and you're supposed to be
right. While you're here today, Warren, I do want to commend you for your service to our country on this Veterans Day.
Thank you.
When you were 18, we were just 10 months into World War II. You enlisted.
Right. Well, I chose the easy way out. I enlisted in the Navy because I didn't want to sleep in a foxhole. Guadalcanal had gone. The guys had gone through Guadalcanal and they were in New Guinea, and I just couldn't imagine myself sleeping in a mosquito-laced, malaria-driven foxhole somewhere on a South Pacific island. And I figured that if I went in the Navy and I got wet, everybody on the ship would be wet. Well, that turned out to be true because we got sunk just before they dropped the atom bomb.
Your ship was sunk?
Yeah, it was not a bad deal. It was in a hurricane. It was no artillery or anything.
Okay,
Well, it's never a good deal.
Yeah.
That's still not the goal.
As sinkings go, though, I got to give it to them.
Could have been worse.
Look at you. You're so humble about it. Tell me about being on a sinking ship.
Well, we were going from Guadalcanal to Pearl Harbor to get outfitted as a shallow water minesweep to go invade Tokyo. And the talk on the street at that point in everybody's life that was in the service, if we invaded Tokyo, we'd lose 250,000 people, Americans.
Right.
And we would have been in the front row of that whole thing because we would have been a shallow sweep to go in before the regular minesweepers. And that wasn't very pleasant to look forward to. And they sent us east at Funafuti, a small island, refuel, go north to Pearl Harbor, and the dispatch officer sent us right out into the eye of a hurricane. Our boat was very old and the wooden hull rot.
Wooden hull.
And so anyway, in plowing through these waves that kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, we punched a hole in the bow. One of those pieces of the bow broke off, and the captain and myself were off watch down in our quarters, and the bosun's mate threw the door open and said, "You guys better get your fannies up here because this ship is sinking." And I rolled out of my bunk, and sure enough, there was a foot of water in the wardroom already. And that was about 2 in the afternoon. We stayed afloat all night, and the next day we all got rescued.
How many men on board?
There was 27. We figured out a real easy way to get them off the ship onto there were 6 of us, 6 ships, and it was a pretty simple procedure because by 1945 I'd already surfed for 8 years, and I knew a fair amount about the waves and what they could do. So we just took we only had one big life raft made out of balsa wood, and we could put we could put half the crew in the life raft or hanging in the water tied onto the outside. And we tied 3 heaving lines together, which would be 180 feet, I guess. Yeah, 180 feet or so. And we just let them drift downwind to another ship. And as soon as they all climbed on board the ship,
you pulled it back.
We towed the raft.
And
Wow.
you helped engineer this rescue.
Well, only my knowledge of the ocean and what it can happen.
Just the important stuff.
That's the important stuff.
Well, congratulations and happy Veterans Day, and thank you for
What?
your service. Now, you came back and you immediately, you started to, when you came back, you started skiing?
No, I'd been
snowboarding?
skiing. They hadn't invented snowboarding yet.
Okay. But you started making films when you came back, I guess.
Well, 8mm. The day I got mustered out of the Navy in July of 46, I spent my mustering out pay and bought an 8mm camera. started taking surfing movies at both Malibu and San Onofre, which is the only places you could really surf in those days because the boards were so big and heavy. And one thing led to another, and next thing I know, I was living in the Sun Valley parking lot with my 8mm camera and my friend Ward Baker, and taking movies of each other skiing. And a couple times I showed my surfing movie to people in Idaho who had never seen the ocean or had never seen a surfboard, and they giggled and laughed and had a good time. Well, the next summer, I showed my ski movies in Southern California to my surfing
to
friends
people who had never seen snow.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant.
And Sun Valley in those days, that wasn't like movie stars and up there skiing, right? I mean, that was...
the movie stars came up there, but they were semi-senior citizens, and I think they went that far away to do heavy drinking.
That's pretty much what they did. We're talking to Warren Miller, the legendary filmmaker. Warren, you built a huge company. Your movies stand as the best of their craft. What is your philosophy about movie making?
I think it's very simple, and it's an art form, if you will, just like a paintbrush or talking on the radio, as you're doing an excellent job of. And I think that keeping it simple, telling a story, and the story when you're watching a movie, you have three capabilities. You can watch the picture, but you can only do two. You can't do all three at the same time. You can watch the film and listen to the music, or the narration. And when the narration is on, you should turn the music way down and have music that matches what's on the screen. And for years, I firmly believed that a full symphony was required for a full mountain scene with a small image coming down the fill.
You hired like symphony musicians?
No, what I did was that I went to record stores, which there were a lot of in those days, and I always went to the discount record rack where the 78 RPMs were $1, knowing full well that they would only be in the $1 rack if they never sold, and they weren't very popular.
They weren't popular.
And it was a budgetary problem also, so I'd buy an armload of these 78 or 33 1/3 by then,
Old
I guess. Symphonies.
By
played,
people who weren't going to ask you for royalties?
Yeah. Well,
those kind of people?
Yeah, well, somebody, it was a Bulgarian symphony orchestra.
Right. Who cares about them?
Well, the country was around anymore, yeah.
Yeah.
And who could tell the difference, when somebody really conducts an orchestra and has a good ear, neither of which I have or know how to do, I can't tell the difference between something that's going on in Benaroya Hall or some of these old Bulgarian phonograph records.
And they make you feel the grandeur of the mountain,
exactly,
and the beautiful scenery.
Then you have one solo instrument following the skier in the same rhythm.
Did you ever put a Coke can just lying on the side of the mountain, just out of curiosity?
No, because that film was done about 20 or 25 years ago, after I had done maybe 45 feature films.
That's right. That film is relatively new.
It is.
Yeah.
And the film went worldwide when it was released, and they did The God Must Be Crazy 2. I don't know whether he tried a 3 or not, but he kind of lost his way after this one thing.
Yeah.
And
the first one is the definitive work.
Right.
Yeah.
And as they say, the only difference between a career and a job is the depth of the groove you're hooked in. And a lot of careers follow a very narrow path, which mine did. And I did only two things the whole time I was making movies. Number one, when I started, there was 15 chairlifts in North America.
That's how many there were?
That's right. There was one on I think there was one in Washington, over at Mount Spokane. There was one in Oregon, 2 in California, 3 in California. And then you had to go to Alta, Utah, then Sun Valley.
So if you wanted to ski down Snoqualmie Pass, you had to walk up it first.
Well, you could take the train to the other side and walk up from where the train left you off.
Okay.
And
that's amazing.
And the people in the city of Seattle who live within, say, 100 miles of Snoqualmie Pass are so lucky to have Snoqualmie to learn on, Alpental to do extreme skiing, now Crystal with their gondola, and Stevens Pass and Mount Baker. That whole coastal range, if you will, is a welcome playground, and all skiing does, it satisfies the basic instinct of everybody in this room and anybody that's listening to this radio show. Our basic instinct is our constant search for freedom. And that's all I did my whole life was show people, you live in a square house on a straight street and go to a square office with a square desk and your body's round. It doesn't belong in any of those places. I notice you have a round table in this studio, and it says a lot for who designed it.
Because it has some form to it. It could have been square.
Right.
It has some art to it. It could have.
Well,
it's inefficient to make it round, and it's harder to make it round.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as you could probably be aware, I've been on a lot of radio programs in the 125 years that I made movies, or so it seems now.
Yeah.
And I've never seen such a well-engineered setup as you have here at your radio station.
Well, thank you, Warren Miller.
And I hope that the people who come to Benaroya Hall next on the 20th to watch this Gods Must Be Crazy and listen to me waffle on the stage answering questions from the audience, they're all looking for freedom as well as you are every morning when you talk to the people who are grinding along at 4 miles an hour on Highway 5.
Things are moving well today.
Yes, right. Now,
driving.
the question remains, if they had named it Highway 100, would they be going 68?
Good question.
And I understand now they're going to widen the 520 bridge, is it?
Yeah.
And the 520 bridge will still butt dead end into I-5. How are you going to get them all? If they put 12 more lanes across the lake, they still have to merge with southbound or northbound.
But we will we will spend more time watching Santa Claus ski in the winter.
Yeah, that's for
ski.
sure.
That's about it.
That's for sure.
So, Warren, you sold your money. Did you sell your company to your son, or did you give it to him?
What?
And then he sold it to Time Magazine, and then
brief scenario. After I had done all this, running the company single-handedly I had a lot of really good people working for me, but I did it for 45 years. I'd go on the road and do 100 one-night stands. One year I slept in 212 or 14 hotels, which is really stupid. And after 45 years, I kind of got tired, and a friend of mine was going to set his son up in the surfing movie business. And at that point in time, Bruce Brown was the only guy that ever made a successful surfing movie. And he did a magnificent job, made a lot of money, and quit. And I sold half of my company to Terry Bassett, and he used to own a company called Concerts West. He and Bob, whatever his name is, I'm like Mr. Perry on television.
The third guy.
Bob Geddes. They owned Concert West, and they thought that they could take my ski films and make a Concert West deal out of them. Rent the 5,000-seat theaters and stuff, and it's the wrong format for what I do, just like this radio studio is the right format for what everybody in the room is doing. And they were my partners for 5 years. After 5 years, working very closely with them, picking the resorts, writing the script, narrating a show, okaying the music, supervising the editing, arranging the tour, they called me into a meeting one day, and I was living in Maui at the time and writing my scripts in Maui and windsurfing every day. And in this meeting, they said, Warren, we want you to save the first week of September because we have a surprise for you. And I said, well, I don't do surprises. What is it? And they said, we've reserved 2 hotel rooms in Carmel, and we've hired the best voice coach in the state of California to work with you for a week. And I said, let me think about that. And I long ago had enough people tell me that I had voice recognition with whatever I did, low key. And after 5 years, if they weren't smart enough to know that, why change what works? And so instead of renewing my contract for another 5 years, I sold my half of the company to my son and his partner, and they sold their half to my son and his partner. They ran it for 10 years, sold to Time Warner, retired, made a lot of money, and they're entitled to it. And then Time Warner, 3 or 4 years ago, sold it to a Swedish consortium. And in the milieu of Time Warner, the people at Time Warner didn't believe that there should be comedic. There should not be any comedy in a ski movie because it's not funny. Well, I think it's a funny sport. And,
been working for 40-some years.
Exactly.
It's owned by the United Arab Emirates today.
It's owned by a Swedish consortium, and
they're known for funny Swedes.
Yeah.
Man, they're the bomb.
They're Their eyeballs are frozen for 9 months a year.
So
That
there'll
does
be
help.
a Warren Miller movie this year, but it won't be yours.
It won't be done by him. Warren, I'm sorry we're out of time, but I want to make sure that I tell everybody to visit you. SIF presents An Evening with Warren Miller, November 20th, Ben Arroyo Hall. Doors open, cocktails begin at 5 p.m. You'll be there, right?
Right.
And
I'll be serving the cocktails.
You'll be hobbing. You'll be knobbing. It'll be great.
Sure.
The event begins at 6 p.m. All the information's on our website, bobrivers.com. It is a pleasure to meet you.
It's my pleasure.
Again.
Thank you and your whole staff. You got 19 people here backing you up in case you forget what to say.
Those are just the ones you see. There are many more.
These are the talented people. The ones back there are putting wires together.
That's right.
Exactly.
Making sure they go out under your... What station is this?
Think Pat O'Day and you'll come up with it. It's KJR-FM. Yeah, 95.7. Warren Miller, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
We'll put a link to this on our website so you don't forget it.
Yeah, get there early and get as many drinks as you can. You'll enjoy the movie more.